Are you struggling to read a tape measure accurately? In this video, I'm going to show you how to read a tape measure like a pro. I'm also going to show you a few features of a tape measure you may not have known about. So grab your tape measure and let's get started. So what I have here are three different tape measures. The two outer ones are 25 footers. One's a Stanley, one is a Chameleon brand. Never heard of that brand before. It is actually a kind of nice tape measure though. And then the middle one is also a Stanley, but this is a 16 footer. These two are 25s. So typically when you go smaller on the length of a tape measure, you also lose width on the tape. So that also usually means that it's not going to be as rigid as you extend it out further and further. It'll bend at a certain point because there's not enough width to keep it rigid. So those are a few things to consider when you're buying a tape measure. As you can see, the two larger ones have the fractional inches on them. That one and that one. The smaller one, it still has the lines, but it doesn't tell you what they are. When I was a teacher, I used to call these dummy tape measures when they had the fractions on them, just because you really didn't have to know how to read one. You just had to find the line and what marking it was above it. These only are marked to the 1/8 of an inch, and there are 1/16 of an inch on these that don't have the marking, so you would have to figure that out. This one, it actually goes to 32nds of an inch on the markings up to the first foot, and then it just has 1/16 of an inch after that. So you can see the lines get a little bit more spaced out once they hit 12 inches. A few differences in these tape measures. The Chameleon brand, once you get past 12 inches, it starts saying the feet and inches above the total inch count. So at 15 inches, it says 1'3". You know, if we went out here to 26 inches, 2'2". So that is a nice thing if you're measuring in feet and inches. A lot of times you'll measure in just inches, but it just depends on what you're using the tape measure for. The smaller Stanley, after you get a foot, it marks them in red, so you can read 1 foot 6 inches, or on the bottom in black 18 inches, and then 2 foot 2 inches, or the bottom in black 26 inches. The wider Stanley does not have the feet and inches. It just has the total inch count. There's no 1 foot before it or anything like that. So just a few differences in the tape measures, how they number things. Now one thing that most every tape measure has is you're going to see occasionally a red number. So 16, 32, and so on. Those numbers are primarily for people who are framing houses, and those designate where a stud should be placed. So it's a quick, easy way to look at the tape, find the red number, make your mark, so you can lay out a wall a lot easier. So you can see all the red numbers at the 16. So every one of these tape measures has that. Another marking you're going to see, and you see it here at 19 3/16 on each one of these. This one's a triangle, and these two are diamonds. It could be a dot. It's just going to be some kind of marking, and that is also for framing houses, and it denotes the spacing between joists. So if you're just doing normal woodworking, you're never going to probably pay attention to that, but that is what it's for. Okay, so now we're going to talk about the ends. This one right here, this is a metal screwdriver I'm pointing with. actually has a magnetic end. So that can come in handy in certain situations. All right. One other thing about tape measures is people often wonder and think that their tape measure is broken when the hook at the end moves like this. That is intentional. Do not throw your tape measure away if it has a movement on the end. This one does it. This one does it. This one does it. The reason for that is it allows you to hook on to measure something, or it allows you to press against to measure something, and the movement accounts for the thickness of the hook and will make you accurate both ways. So the way you can lose some inaccuracy with a tape measure is if this hook gets bent. So if you drop it on the ground a few times and it happens to land on that corner and bends it when it's in the closed position, then you can lose accuracy. But just the movement of it does not mean you lost accuracy on it. So do not throw your tape measure away if it moves. Most tape measures have some sort of locking mechanism. This one actually has worn out, so it's supposed to stay in the open position at all times, and it goes right back in. The way it's supposed to go back in is by squeezing the handle, so something inside of here is not holding the tape in place anymore. This one, same thing. I don't know if it's a Stanley thing or not, but again, it goes in on its own. This handle squeezes, and that's how it's actually supposed to retract. This one stays out really well. Its retraction is a button right here. When I press it, it just draws it back in. There are some tape measures, and I don't have one here, that will go back in on its own, and you have to push a lock button to lock it out. So it's just, each one's a little bit different. Just need to know how yours works. It's very important that you measure accurately. If you are doing rough construction, accuracy is a little less important, but if you are doing just woodworking, furniture making, the more precise you can be, the better. So it's not any harder to mark a 16th or a 32nd on a board than it is an actual inch. You still have to read the tape measure and be able to mark it. So just a tip here, this tape measure is one of those tape measures I call the dummy tape measures, and there's nothing wrong with using them. They actually make it a lot quicker. I'm not criticizing you if you have one. It's just what I always called it. So if you have a measurement that is on a line that's not marked, which in this case they're 16ths of an inch, all you really need to do to figure out what that measurement is go back to the marking right before it. So in this case, 5/8. Okay. To get that next 16th quickly, all you have to do is double the fraction. So 5/8, double the numerator and the denominator. 5/8 turns into 10/16. The next line, you just add one more 16th. So the line after 5/8 is 11/16. And you can do that with any of these fractions. If you know that's 11/16 and maybe it's right, you have 30 seconds, you just do that again. So 11/32 doubled is 22/30, or 11/16 doubled is 22/32, plus 1, 23/32 would be the next line. So that's all you really have to do, and you can read any fraction on this tape measure by doing that. And like I said, this doesn't have 30 seconds, the other one does. And you can see the lines are close and kind of hard to read. So it would take a little bit of math and figuring out if you wanted to read this tape measure. It's not going to just tell you. Now, a problem you're going to run into is it can be a challenge to read a tape measure if the metal hook at the end is covering up the markings. So if you're measuring something small like this stick here, it's really hard to tell what line you're at because you can't count back from the first line. You can maybe count back once you recognize one. So I think that this right here is a half, but I'm not 100% sure. So the way you can work around a situation like this is hold it on one of the inch lines, and so this edge, I'm holding on the 2. I'm not really paying attention that I'm on the 2. I just know that I'm on a line, and then I can get the measurement from the other side of the stick. This stick is 3/8 thick. So that is a way to get around that problem that you can have with the hook interfering with your reading. And you'll use that frequently because oftentimes it seems that you'll find spots where you just can't read because of the hook on the end of the tape measure. So that covers the basics of using a tape measure. I know when I was a high school teacher and I taught high school woodworking shop class, one of the biggest problems I had when people came in is they just didn't know how to read a tape measure. And so that was when I stopped teaching, that was one of my concerns. Like, these kids aren't learning how to use a tape measure, and it's still an important skill to know. So that is one of the reasons I wanted to cover in here, because I know there's people out there that don't know how to use a tape measure or don't know what all the markings mean. And so I just wanted to help you out. It's part of my channel is just educating on woodworking and trades and anything that is related to those areas. So I hope you enjoyed this. If you did, please hit the like button and hit the subscribe button. Heck, share it on social media. It all helps my channel out, and I greatly appreciate it. And if you want to leave a question or a comment in the description, I'd be glad to interact with you. So thanks again for watching, and we'll catch you next time.